Thanks for watching Tech Rec. This video, we're going to show you how to turn your Canon EOS camera, or one of a couple of PowerShot cameras, into a high quality webcam. So the camera we're using to film this video right now is your pretty run-of-the-mill Logitech C920. Apparently streamers love them and YouTube channels love them. It's an under $100 camera for just basic video recording. It does what it's supposed to do. It does it pretty good. It has built-in microphones, a little blue light to tell you that it's on. But the quality does sometimes leave a lot to be desired. In my room here, I have ceiling lights. It's a big room. I actually have a very large 100-watt light behind an umbrella right here, this direction. And then in the opposite direction, I have a softer light behind another umbrella there. And you can see that the picture is pretty grainy. I mean, it's focused on my face and things, but if you have a Canon EOS camera lying around, especially like me, where you're not using it quite so much, or it's an older model that you don't use, you could turn that into a camera. So we're just going to jump in first and talk about what you need to do this. Then we're going to kind of hook it all up, and we're going to put both cameras on the screen so that you can see the difference in quality. And then we're going to talk about pros and cons of using each one. And we'll do that in a couple of different facets. We'll talk about maybe YouTube usage versus game streaming on Twitch or something like that. So obviously the first thing you need is a Canon EOS camera. So I have the T3i. I got a few years back. I've taken thousands of pictures on this thing. And I just have a Canon Pancake, forgot the millimeter, 24 millimeter. I even forgot the f-stop. Doesn't matter. This is a great lens, but there's no zoom. It's a pancake lens, so it doesn't do anything, but lets a lot of light in. It's pretty versatile. So in addition to your camera, there's some other hardware that you need. You need a cable. So the T3i actually has this USB-A to USB mini B. If you don't know what a mini B is, it's a little hard to focus with this camera. Let me get it back here closer to my face. The mini B, if you've ever hooked up maybe a printer and it's got that big square plug on the back of the printer, this is the smaller version of that printer. We've kind of gone away from the format, but a lot of printers still seem to want to use that. And of course, the other side just needs to be something that can plug in to your computer. I have USB-A, it's just 2.0. My camera's only USB 2.0, but you might have a Type-C connector on this end if your computer has a Type-C. In addition to that, we need to swap out the battery in my camera. My camera does not have a dedicated power connection port, so I have to take out the battery and I have to replace it with something like this. So if you don't know what this is, the Canon battery in my T3i looks just like it. Obviously, there are some differences here, especially on this side. So this is almost entirely hollow, whereas this is a battery. And to go along with this, we have this. So right in here, there's just a plug port, and we plug this in. Maybe. And then when we follow this the other end, we get to an AC adapter. And of course, we're just going to plug our AC cord that plugs into the wall or power strip right here. So I bought this on Amazon. It wasn't terribly expensive. I'll post some links below, maybe put some text on the screen of how much it costs. So we're going to use that. For good measure, I'm going to use one of these. So if you're not familiar with this is a remote shutter control. They're called by different names. But traditionally what you would use this for is if you wanted to take a long exposure shot, or you wanted to take a time-lapse shot, and your camera doesn't support that. The T3i only supports a 30-second exposure. And if I'm taking a very dark picture of the sky, I might want to hold that shutter open more than 30 seconds. I could use this to do that. And I could either do that by holding in the button as long as I want, or I could program this. So I could program this a number of ways here to just hold the shutter open for any duration I want. And I could also program it to tell it to take one picture every 10 seconds, for instance, and get a time lapse. So it's actually pretty good. If you don't have one of these with your camera and you want to control your shutter without having to press the button. The other good thing is that it doesn't cause any camera shake when you press down your button. These are good to pick up. I'll put a link in the description as well for this. Just one note on this, which is kind of irrelevant to our cause here, is I bought this about 6 or 7 years ago and put AAA batteries in it. There's no off switch on here, so it stays on, and it's still on the same set of batteries. So this is not a battery user. But we're going to use this for its focus control. So just like on your camera, when you push your button halfway in and it focuses on what you are pointing at, this will do the same thing. And when we have our camera sitting up behind our screen here to film us, we don't want to have to get up and refocus if it does. We could just hold our button down as it lays on our desk and do that. In addition to that, as I said, we're going to have it on a tripod. And so we're going to put our mount on our camera, and we're just going to mount it to a tripod. The tripod's behind my screen. So I'm just using this. I think I paid $30 maybe. I'll post a link and a price that I paid for it on Amazon. But the reason why I chose this is because of the head. This head is really sturdy. I think it's plastic. It's not an aluminum head or anything like that. The screws are really locked tight. The feature I really liked was how this mount attaches to the head here. So when I open this, it latches in. Many tripods, you just set this on here and clip it shut. This one actually slides in. So it slides into the groove. And then when you press it down, it pushes a button that lets this close. And it does not move at all in there. So if you're going to use it with the tripod, I'll put a link in the description. You can check this one out. We need our plate back here just so that we can put it on. So hardware wise, that's really all we need. So I'm just going to talk about connecting that up. So on the side of my camera here, if I can get it to focus, this is the bad thing about webcams is focus isn't always the best. There's a couple of flaps here. So these are rubber flaps, and my camera's flipped, so I'm having a little difficulty getting hold of them here. And inside here are some connection ports. Same thing with this one. So you can see on the top of this one here is where our USB port is going to go. The one below it is an HDMI out. So I suppose if you wanted to do it a little bit differently, you could do it that way. But you're going to, I think that's more for playback than streaming. And then over here is the top port is actually where we're going to plug in our remote shutter control. So the first thing we want to do is we just want to open the battery compartment. And we're going to slide in our adapter. So this looks a little bit janky because it goes in here and this has a lid, but Canon's actually already thought of that. There's actually a little flap here. This is how it's designed to take wall power is through exactly this. So when we slide our battery in, this cable will actually just lay in that groove, and the door shuts tight. It's pretty simple. And then for our USB cable, it's going to take my Type B end, and we're going to plug it in that top port. And then for our remote shutter, I'm going to plug it in here, but I'm going to pull it out because I'll put it back in after I get it on the tripod. The same with my power. Is a little hard to see there, but just the top hole, and it plugs in. I'm going to pull these back out, and I'm going to go ahead and mount this, and then we'll come back and we'll look at the difference in some video. Before I actually mount it, One of the tricks that I do is I put my handle, my tripod, in the direction that I want my camera to face. So my camera is actually going to face this way rather than this way. Typically you'd be behind the camera. But since we're going to be in front of the lens, I put my little control arm here pointing toward me. It stays well out of the way of the camera focus, but it allows me to adjust it without having to get up and play with the camera. I can just reach up and grab the handle. Want to keep it tight, but not too tight, because you want it to move, but you don't want to move the whole tripod, and you don't want to have to unscrew it every time you want to move it. So just keep that in mind if you do it this way. Okay, so here we are back. We have the new DSLR connected up, and we have our webcam. So the wider and shorter image is the webcam, and the more square and bigger image is the DSLR. So the reason for that is in some of the pros and cons. So the webcam output is going to be 1080p. Therefore, it's going to be a widescreen format, and it's going to fill our entire screen if we have a 1080p screen. The webcam, while it's capable of outputting 1080p, or recording, I should say, 1080p video and taking images at 18 megapixel, the USB 2.0 standard of the camera and my computer can't transmit that much data. So that sounds a little odd if you don't understand, but the webcam is designed to take the image and compress it down and send it across USB, whereas the DSLR, the Canon, is not designed to do that. So the video that it outputs across the USB is uncompressed video. So sending 1080p at 30 frames per second, or even dumbed down to 24 frames, more like a film, is actually too much bandwidth for the 2.0 standard. I'm not sure how that would work if your camera supported USB 3.0, because there's a plethora of more bandwidth available to you. You might actually get 1080p out of it. So if you're interested in doing that and your camera's USB 3.0, you may want to look into that, and maybe you can get a full 1080p. So just to talk about what that really means is I'm going to take the webcam camera and I'm going to reset the transformations that I've actually applied to it. And you'll see that that instantly comes out and fills the whole screen. Now I'm going to do the same thing for my Canon, my DSLR. And this will be full size. So this is what we get with the DSLR. So the webcam's 1080p. And I apologize for if you see the twinkling in the background here, is one of the things you don't see, and I'll show you in just a second, is that there's a little bit of masking here I've done in order to make this image the actual size. So whereas our 1080p camera fills our whole screen, our Canon does it. And the reason for that is that it's supposed to be outputting it at 720p, but the actual image size that comes out, as best as I can tell, is actually about 1030 by 690. So if you're doing some sort of streaming or recording, you can use your tool. I'm using OBS, and you can't see what I'm doing, but you can make this image bigger and ultimately ending in a crop. But you can see even blown up, this is actually pretty good video. The reason for that is that the lens on that camera and the processing that's going into it is designed for taking pictures. It's an 18 megapixel sensor, so it's uncompressed. So you're getting the raw data out of here. And if we move this out of the way, you can see the color correction is a lot better here. And actually, if you look at the floor behind me, this is actually more the color of my floor. It's actually a little darker, I think, than in real life. But we're filming at night with only just a few lights here. And the colors of the couch behind me are much closer. The red is much closer. And you can see back here, it's a little more pinky or maroony, maybe. I mean magenta. So if you're going to be recording full screen, you'll have to weigh out the pros and cons of using your DSLR, because you are going to be expanding the image. And while we do get better quality out of it, we're going to get a smaller viewpoint. The other thing is clarity. So you can pick out every little bristle here on my chin. It's a little more difficult when we do that on the webcam. My skin is very pale, and you can even see just moving my hand in and out of the frame is actually changing the webcam, trying to adjust automatically to what I'm doing there. And we won't get that so much. It's going to be much more natural here. What I talked about with focusing is, depending on what you have your focal point set to, you can get out of frame. And the DSLR, unless your camera supports autofocus, is going to blur the image, which is why I have the remote shutter control. So if I'm out of frame, I can use the remote shutter control. Oh, I actually took a picture. I pushed it in too far. And now I'm in focus again. And then when I move back in, let me move this up a little bit. I'm out of focus again, and now I'm back in focus. So that does something to your image. You've seen the pictures where the background's blurred, and they always look better than just your typical camera. I've grabbed the wrong camera here. So you can see that things in my background in the top are a little more, when I say clear, that's not necessarily a good thing, but it's clear. You can even see a little bit of junk on my desk over here. You can see here that blurs out. That's called bokeh in the camera world. And depending on your lens, you might get really great bokeh. This lens does it, but not necessarily at this distance. The other benefit that you have of using this particular method of using your camera as a webcam is that this Canon is interchangeable lenses. So I'm going to show you a couple of different other lenses put on here, and you can see how they look and the different focal lengths. So while this one's not a zoom lens, I'm going to put a fixed focus 85mm on here, and I'm going to put a 18 to 250, I think, zoom lens on here, and we'll show what those look like and how you might use those as well. Before we do that, I want to talk about the software that we do use. So the utility that we use for this is free. It's from Canon. It's called the EOS Webcam utility, imaginative name, I know. But you know, they talk about live stream like a pro. So I'm going to go back to that camera just a little bit and see exactly what they're talking about here. So most people aren't live streaming today with their image of their face fully broadcast across their screen. What they're really doing is they're streaming their game in an image about that size. So you can see in this size of picture, in this overlay, the quality is outstanding, and it will be far and away better than that webcam will ever produce. And we can make this as small as we like. In OBS, you can do a whole bunch of things if you're not familiar with it. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit and show you one of the filters I've put on my screen is a drawback to using this camera. Is I have a color key filter on here that removes some black. When I take that out, you can see I'm getting black bars on either side. So I've just used a chroma key filter to take that out. No different than if I had a green screen behind me. And if I blow this up, you can see the in the black behind me, other side, that where there were sparkles, those have gone away because I'm no longer trying to make those transparent. In OBS, we can actually just crop that black out. We don't need a chroma key. I just used that because I wanted to keep it hidden for demonstration there. So I'm going to turn this camera back off and go back to the camera utility. So of course, Canon is, you stream like a pro. It is going to be a lot better quality, but not full picture like they show in their view up here. They've got a full on picture up here. And this guy's got a zoom lens on there. Depending on that, it might be entirely too close to his face. But, it does come in Windows version and a Mac version. And a fancy little video here. So they talk about being compatible with all the following applications. The reason why it's compatible with these applications is because when you install that driver, you're actually just installing a webcam connector, really. So it understands how to talk to your camera, and it presents itself as just another webcam input. So there's some starting guides and forums here. You really don't need those. You install it and it comes up as an EOS webcam utility as a webcam. So the caveat is you kind of have to have one of the cameras that they indicate. So if you have an EOS camera, you can see there's a bunch on here. You know, I have the T3i, which is, or that's actually over here, the T3i, but there's a bunch of EOS cameras here. I'm going to put a link to this in the description as well. And if you have a PowerShot camera, while there's a bunch out there, it really only supports 3 at the moment. And here there's a footnote with the stars. If you see a red star, it was just added recently, and the double black star indicates that your camera didn't come with the USB cable. So you just need to purchase whatever that cable is. In my case, it was just a generic USB to A to USB B mini. So if your camera's on this list, you're in luck. If it's not, I have read some forums that said that your camera might still work. If you already have the cables and everything else, you could certainly install it and try it. It wouldn't hurt anything, but it's just not officially supported. So I'm going to go ahead and change out a couple of lenses and give you another peek at how they look a little different. Okay, here we're back with the Tamron 18 to 270 millimeter lens. It's an f3.6. You can see the field of view is a little wider because we're at 18 millimeters instead of 24 millimeters like we were with our Canon pancake lens here. So this is a stabilized and autofocus lens. It's a little slower to focus than our pancake lens, but it does have manual zoom on it, and you can see that we could zoom in. I'm going to zoom all the way out onto my hat here. If I keep it in frame and focus. The focus is a little slower on this lens, but it does work. That'd be really good if you're focusing on something away across the room, and you can see my lovely floor. So we're going to bring this back out. And focus up again. And it's not really designed for this focus. So if I just let it focus itself, it tends to get me a little out of focus in my face. So I'm kind of just playing with the button here. And when it gets in focus, I just stop holding the button and it stays in the right place. You see my background isn't quite as blurred out. Maybe that's what you want, but with a good lens, you typically want that if you want good quality video. It just adds that kind of look to your thing. The next we're going to come back with a Rokinon fixed length 85 millimeter. This is a full manual lens. There is no zoom, but the f-stop and is fully manual here. And if we were going to film a picture with it, focus is manual as well. So I don't get to use my little remote control. However, this isn't going to be very practical for webcamming unless you are recording something far off that you really wanted to keep. But I'm only going to show you for the actual image effect that it delivers. Okay, here we are with the Rokinon lens, the 85 millimeter, and you can see why this is not very practical. I'm actually not as close to my desk as I'd like to be, but this is the shortest distance that it will focus. If I set where I normally do, which is about a foot further closer, I can't actually focus this. It won't focus any closer. So I can move out to about here. And this is an f-stop 1.4. You love my great complexion here. You can see that how the back of my chair here, right behind me, is already out of focus. And even my ears when my face is in here. At f1.4, our focal distance here is very shallow. Now this camera will go up higher, but this is where we let in the most light and get the best quality picture. So I'm gonna move out a little bit and move across the room and focus a little more out there. And let's see where we can focus. So I'm not zooming in. This is just the natural, you know, the single focal length of the lens here. So for me, I'm 6 feet from the camera and I'm blurry, whereas it's focused way over there. And so that, again, f1.4, so we can turn down these f-stops here. Now the drawback in filmography is that when you turn the f-stop up, light capture goes down. You can see it kind of compensate for it. When I do this, which is going to be extremely dark. We'll turn it down a few more. So let's come back in here and refocus at our closest distance again. So now you can see that you could use a lens like this and get a lot more in focus. If we turned it up a little, the f-stop up a little more, my chair would probably be in focus as well as my face, but my ears are no longer so much out of focus, and neither is my face. Just wanted to show you this, to show you how a lens with a low f-stop would work. And we're going to turn it back up again. So if you're looking for really quality video and you need to be halfway across the room, this might do it for you. But the big thing here is that with a webcam, the takeaway is that with the webcam, this is going to be more versatile, and I don't have to move my camera around or attach it to a laptop or something. Just like a regular camera, if I need to film something that's not quite as close and I need to get a good zoom on it, I could set that shot up and record it, especially if I'm doing YouTube videos like this, because it's not live and the setup time can be skipped. Obviously for live streaming, you'll want to pick a nice flat pancake lens, maybe a light zoom lens with a good quality and a good f-stop. And you'll want to stick with that and just use it. So I'm going to switch back to that and we'll sum this all up. Okay, so here we're set back up with both cameras on the screen. Webcam here, the DSLR up here, and just kind of a side-by-side comparison. And I'll switch these around so that one overlays the other. And so there you have it. You can just see the difference in the quality, even if the image is going to come across smaller. And so I'm just going to sum up everything we talk about. So if you have an EOS DSLR or one of the 3 power shots that are there, your USB cable and your power adapter, all you have to do is download Canon's free software from their website. Don't forget the link in the description. And you can install it and you can set it up. You're not going to get 1080p video or higher off of that connection, because that EOS camera is designed to take high quality images and it's sending uncompressed video across that line. And the 1030 by 690 is about the maximum, I guess, that my camera can actually push down USB 2.0, and that's what you're going to get. So we're plugged into the computer, we're plugged into the wall, and you don't need it, but it's helpful. You can get the remote shutter release here, and you can use that to focus your pictures without having to touch your camera. Now, why do you have to focus your pictures? Isn't the camera autofocus? It is, and actually some cameras that I've seen from Canon in the EOS series actually support autofocus while it's viewing. Now, that typically isn't the case when you're taking pictures, but the key to making this work on your camera is you have to set it to video mode. You can't set it to a picture mode and take it. However, you can take a picture. And see, I froze for a second there. It actually snapped a picture while I'm doing it. But it runs in video mode. And on my camera, there's not an autofocus in video mode. I have seen custom firmwares, and I believe I've actually seen Canon cameras that you can touch the screen, and it might even be an actual thing where you set your focal point and it just keeps it in focus while you're doing that. Now, typically you have it in your hand, so you would do that as you move along and focus on what you want. But remote shutter release is the way to go if you don't have that. So anyway, I hope you learned a little bit something here. If you did and you weren't too bored and my complexion didn't scare you away and you made it to this point, if you could give us a like and maybe a comment, we read them all. And if you could subscribe, that'd be great too. And if not, that's okay as well. So thanks for watching. Have a great day.